Welcome back to the report. The tripling of student fees have not been good news for any student going to university, but as well as the financial pressure facing students, Muslim students face another one. The issue that loans now incur interest above the rate of inflation causes some to say that they're now not halal. But have the government come up with a solution? Sarah Sai has been finding out more.
Seeking to boost the Muslim student population at British universities, the UK government is in a process of developing Sharia-compliant loans. The announcement was made by the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills after 4 months of consultation with Muslim students, members of the wider Muslim community and the British general public. The rise of UK tuition fees since 2012 means that loans are now paid back above the rate of inflation, something which violates Muslim beliefs. The consultation had more than 20,000 responses, with 93% saying interest-based loans had had an impact on students with religious obligations.
Because I have no choice, because we're gonna have to, because when you're in university there's so much money gets wasted because you have to buy books, pens and stuff, so I'm gonna have no choice but to take out those loans.
I obviously couldn't afford to pay that much tuition fees anyway, and but I know that in my religion taking out an interest, taking out a loan and then paying the interest later is forbidden, but I had no other choice but to take out this loan. Because in our religion, having education is very important for ladies, for men and women. So I had no other choice but to take out the loan.
The government has been working with Islamic finance experts to identify a potential product which could meet the demands of Muslim students.
After quite an extended period of consultation and various groups working towards getting halal student financing, the government has finally offered their feedback on the consultation period, and they've said that they are open to offering halal alternative financing for student loans. At the moment, the actual structure itself of the student loan is to be confirmed, but they have given a commitment to offering halal student financing.
Warding off potential criticism, the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills has confirmed that anyone who takes out the loan under the new scheme would not be better or worse off and would still have to pay back the same amount as all other students. Only with the new Sharia-compliant loan, students make a charitable donation instead of paying interest on their loans. However, it remains to be seen how popular the scheme will be. Various Muslims disagree on certain interpretations of Sharia law, and some believe that attempts to make the new loan halal has meant taking advantage of loopholes rather than adhering to the essence of Sharia. While disagreement exists both outside and within the Muslim community over the scheme, ultimately a solution will need to be found to create an inclusive education system for all British students. Sarah Say, The Report.
Joining me to discuss some of what we saw in that report is Ibrahim Ali, Vice President of Student Affairs at the Federation of Student Islamic Societies, FOSIS. Welcome to the report, Ibrahim. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, can you tell me what exactly is going on?
So in 2011, the government had concluded on the Brown Report, which was initiated by the late Labour government on the future of higher education. And a part of that was actually saying that there should be an element of fees being increased in England. And unfortunately, that meant as well the addition of interest into the system. And the concern from the students at the time, we submitted a good report, I feel, to the Brown Commission as well, and we actually challenged the government on the need for interest, let alone it being tripled to £9,000. They'll disadvantage a large number of students who feel it's a contradiction to they've been basically forced to choose into their faith and education. And we actually perceived that the government will keep it as it was before, that they may have increased to £9,000, but kept it on an inflationary basis as opposed to adding interest on top of it, and that's the biggest concern that we had.
Okay, so what does the government propose now?
So the government basically looked into the responses we've had. There was a consultation released in late, you could say early to late spring. Really horrible time of year, unfortunately, but yet we got 20,000 people replying. And just to give you an idea of how good that was, in the last 3 higher education consultations, we only had in the high 90s people replying. So this shows how much interest there is in the Muslim community, but also I feel within the wider student community about how unethical our sort of higher education system is becoming, more marketized as well, and the element of profit and greed as opposed to it being a common good. good for society. So what's happened now, based on that consultation, the government are now going to commit to looking at ways of allowing Muslim students to have an alternative, which will be open to all students and won't have an interest element to it.
So has this proposal now been confirmed?
Well, it's been confirmed in principle, so the government do wish to sort of see this through. There are a few problems. So at the moment, the current system is you have loans which you pay up to 9% back when you're earning over £20,000, I feel it is, or around there, and that's linked to RPI, which is a means of measuring inflation, plus 3%. We're trying to say to the government to create a sort of charitable fund where students can actually pay the exact same as their non-Muslim peers, but without having that artificial interest rate being set. And the intention would be that after the general election, up until the general election, we'll be lobbying very aggressively, all three main parties, to be having a commitment to install this in the next parliament. And hopefully we should see something in 2016, 2017, God willing.
So we're actually looking to see this come into action between 2016?
We're hoping to. It's all depending on how the parties commit to in their manifestos. I know it depends on what Labour as well bring forward in their higher education policies. They may bring in a graduate tax. It's not ideal, but if that is the case, it will solve a lot of the issues that we have with the current system. But again, it depends on who forms the next government and also if they commit to in their manifesto. We're looking to have it ASAP. So we're going to try and force the government to make parliamentary time to actually bring this legislation through, because it needs an act of parliament, I'm afraid.
So this is great news, right?
It's brilliant news, and it's brilliant news for Islamic societies who campaigned really hard, for student unions, for FOSIS, our partner organisations, NUS, First Ethical, Islamic Finance Council, Muslim Association of Schools. We've had a good 3 years now of really fighting to get to this stage. I remember several years ago it was very hard to get the government to even open a consultation, let alone now having one that's had 20,000 people applying.
And what has the response been like from the non-Muslim community?
They've been very supportive. Obviously, I think the word Sharia, Halal is going to stir up some loopy characters, and that's fine. We're only asking for an alternative, which is open to all, and I think it's good for Muslims to be seen to be leading in ethical finance as well, and an ethical lifestyle. I think it's unjustified for students to be paying £9,000 a year, let alone paying interest on top of that, and let alone the whole client be marketised. I think it says a strong symbol that Muslims are just as concerned as to how ethical and how fair our education system is.
Some might say Muslims are getting special treatment.
It's not special treatment, it's an alternative, it's open to everyone. Of course, we realise that Muslim students are more adversely affected because they want to make sure they're not choosing between their faith and their education. But at the same time, we're very clear, it's an alternative, it's open to everyone, and it's an ethical means of forcing the system or the sector to become more and more, ethically friendly.
Okay, so for people who might have taken out a loan already, for Muslim students who, as you said, who might have been forced to take out these loans, might they be able to convert theirs?
It all depends, unfortunately, the detail. That's what the devil is, as they say. And we'll have to look into that. And we're hoping to, if we can, backdate as much as we can. But I think the priority is getting it right, make sure there's consensus and there's agreement from an Islamic perspective. To be frank, there are a lot of issues with what the government's proposed, and a lot of Islamic scholars are not sort of settled with it, and we're hoping to sort of come to an agreement where it does work within the UK sort of HMR taxing system, but at the same time that is as Islamic and as Halal Sharia-Compliant as possible.
So has there been consensus from the different Muslim and Islamic factions on this proposal?
There are differences of view. I feel that the majority of the view is to make sure that this current proposal is not the final proposal, because there are some issues with it as opposed to how Islamic it is. There are people who are advancing what the government is pushing forward already. But I think we're looking to build consensus. We acknowledge we're not going to get the perfect system. The perfect system will be free. That's my personal view, free education for all, fully funded by taxpayer, because it's a common good. But at the same time, we're hoping that as long as we get the majority of the Islamic Muslim community, especially those Islamic finance experts and those scholars, are crucial to making that happen.
So what sort of issues might you raise?
So the issues we have really are making sure that there's key stakeholders actually involved in this. So we have legitimate Muslim scholars who are from the community, who are credible, and as long as, look, it's about basically this being seen as credible. There's no point in the government having a fantastic alternative if the Muslim community doesn't buy into it, doesn't use it, doesn't see it as credible. And that's what's really important. This is something that should be community-led. It shouldn't be the government feeling that they've become overnight Sharia scholars. It should be saying that, look, we're here to listen, and we're here to see what we can do to make this as appropriate as possible.
And you have a lot of community support, right?
Yeah, 20,000 people says a lot. I mean, actually, if you look at the list of people who filled it out, we've had great support from mosques, from community organisations, youth groups, Islamic societies, student unions, even non-Muslim groups as well have been very supportive. And I think that broad spectrum of support, and people seen that Muslim students have been locked out, I'm afraid, for several years under the marketisation of higher education. It's unjustified, it really is.
Okay, great. Well, one of the things I did want to ask you was, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of pressure on Muslim students at universities, lots of different rhetoric coming out from the government. Is this a nice change and a welcomed thing to come through?
Well, the naive person, not the naive, shall I say, the more sceptical side of me will think it's too good to be true. And that's based on what the government proposed. It's not perfect. There are a lot of issues with it. I feel that it's probably suitable for the government to say that they've done one nice thing and 99 bad things. And I think that's the problem. I think they need to be very open and well-rounded in their approach to the Muslim community. It's all well and good having a nice Islamic alternative for student financing, but if the climate, the antagonism, the approach the government has towards the Muslim community is negative, that this will do much to sort of, make it more palatable.
Do you think the fact that so much community-level support was able to be found on this issue allowed it to be taken to such high level?
I agree. I think that's what we depend on the community. We depended on young people, students, parents, in the local communities across England to actually ensure that this was achieved. Because at the end of the day, 20,000 people, in the heat of exams. It's a very hard thing to achieve. And we were very frustrated initially when the government proposed the set date for the consultation as being the most awkward time of the year for students. But yet, they rose to a challenge as they always do. And mashallah, 20,000 people is a lot of people filling in the survey.
Okay, and where can people find out more information about what's going on?
So the best thing to do would be go to brightonhalal.co.uk. It's the sort of online portal for all the partner organisations. FOSIS has been taking an active part in that along with our colleagues, and it's got a great update on what the next steps will be. And in a sort of nutshell, our main intention is to ensure that this is basically a commitment by all the three parties to get this done within the next Parliament.
Well, thank you so much, Ibrahim, for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for on this episode of The Report. I want to thank Ibrahim, Ali and all of our guests on today's programme, and thank you at home for watching. Remember, you can keep up with our Twitter conversation on Islam Channel and at Islam Channel CA, and use the hashtag The Report to tweet us. We're back on Monday evening at the same time, but for now we'll leave you with some footage from a festival being held in Amman, which celebrates storytelling in various forms through theatre and art. Performers from across the Arab and Muslim world are taking part in a 5-day event. Good night.